My husband told me he wanted a divorce on a Thursday morning, just after breakfast. He said it quietly, almost kindly, like he was sparing me something. We were sitting across from each other at the kitchen table, where the sunlight usually poured in through the large bay windows and made our granite countertops sparkle. That morning, though, the light felt too bright, too sharp, like a spotlight aimed at a lie finally being exposed. He folded his hands on the table. "I've spoken to my lawyer," he said. "Her name is Dana Whitmore. She'll reach out to you today." I remember blinking slowly, like my brain was buffering the sentence. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't scream or protest. I just stared at him and wondered how many mornings like this he had sat here, next to me, knowing he was going to leave. We'd been married 11 years. Together for 13. The next few hours passed in a blur. I walked around the house like a guest, noting things that once felt permanent. A photo from our honeymoon in Santorini, the key holder we picked out together in Prague, the worn-out recliner he refused to part with. All of it suddenly became relics of a life that was being filed under past tense. Dana Whitmore called me that afternoon. Her voice was warm, polished. Too polished. "I understand this must be difficult for you," she said gently. "I'd be happy to schedule a meeting and go over everything at your convenience." I didn't know what to say, so I said yes. The lawyer. Dana's office was in a sleek high-rise in the financial district. All glass walls and quiet hums. I arrived early, dressed like someone who still had control of her life. Neat black slacks, pale blue blouse, hair pulled back. I'd spent half the night on Google, trying to understand what to expect. Spousal support. Asset division. Custody, though we didn't have kids. Dana welcomed me with practiced empathy. "He just wants things to go smoothly," she said, folding her hands much like my husband had. "He's willing to be fair. Amicable. Fair." That word stung. Was it fair that I had stayed through his career changes, through his father's cancer, through the 4 years we tried and failed to have a child? Was it fair that he got to leave like it was a business transaction? I listened, asked questions. I signed the preliminary paperwork. But I left feeling hollow, like I was the one being evicted from my own life. The silence. That first week, he stayed in the guest room. He was still polite, still made his coffee quietly in the mornings, still asked if I needed anything from the store. But the space between us was wide and echoing. We didn't fight. We didn't touch. We simply unraveled. I asked him once, "Is there someone else?" He didn't answer right away. "There was," he said. "Not anymore." I felt like he'd hit me without lifting a hand. Her name was Kristen. I remembered her vaguely, someone from his firm. He said it had been over for months, that it had only lasted a few weeks. But that wasn't the point. The point was that he had already stepped outside our marriage, left the door open. The realization. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Jamila Hassan. She was calm, insightful, the kind of woman who didn't flinch at pain. I told her I didn't know who I was without him. She smiled gently. "Then maybe now is the time to find out." I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I joined a local writing group, mostly older women and one eccentric man who wrote steamy vampire thrillers. I began to look forward to Tuesday evenings more than anything else. My husband, no Michael, moved out 6 weeks after that breakfast. I didn't cry when the moving truck came. I watched as he loaded boxes of books, his guitar, the coffee machine. He left me the bed and the dining table and the silence. The unseen life. 3 months passed. Dana continued to send updates. I reviewed, revised, signed. My name was still on everything. Our joint account, the mortgage, the utility bills. But I was learning to reclaim myself from those lines of paper. I started hiking. I painted one of the bedroom walls green. I kissed a stranger once after a book club meeting, just once. It was clumsy and brief, but it made me feel alive. Then, one afternoon, Dana asked me to come in. "There's been a change," she said. I thought Michael was revoking the agreement. I was ready for a fight. But instead, Dana handed me a letter. Handwritten. From him. Anna, by the time you read this, everything will be finalized. I know I've hurt you and I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to say this anyway. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't leave because of you. I left because I lost sight of myself, and I didn't know how to stay honest. I thought ending things cleanly was the least I could do, but I realize now I was still trying to control the narrative. Thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it. I hope you find someone that loves you like I should have. Michael. I didn't cry then either. I walked out of Dana's office, sat in my car, and let the city move around me. His words didn't change anything, but they gave me a strange peace. A permission to let go. The becoming. A year later I stood in a bookstore, holding my own book in my hands. A collection of essays. Part memoir, part reflection, on love, loss and starting again. I dedicated it to myself, quietly, fiercely. To the woman I found. The dedication read. Michael had become a paragraph in one chapter. A necessary one but no longer the whole story. I wasn't who I had been before him. I wasn't who I was with him. I was something else now. Someone softer and sharper all at once. I had learned to make my own coffee in the morning, to enjoy empty rooms, to live without waiting for footsteps in the hall. And somewhere between Dana's office and the first green brushstroke on my wall, I had found the only thing he couldn't give me. Myself. I sold the house 6 months after the divorce was finalized. It was too big, too quiet, too full of echoes. I'd walk into the living room and still expect to see his laptop open on the couch. I'd reach into the fridge and find a bottle of the mustard only he liked, untouched since he left. So I sold it. Let the memories go, one room at a time. The new owners were a young couple, newly married. Their eyes glowing with the same hope we once carried. I didn't warn them. Hope deserves a chance to bloom, even if it eventually wilts. I bought a smaller place. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a balcony that caught the morning light. It was mine. Every piece of furniture, every framed photo, every color on the wall. I painted the bathroom navy blue and bought a yellow kettle. I planted herbs in mismatched pots. There was a freedom in rebuilding my life with both hands. No compromises. No careful negotiations. I didn't have to consider anyone else's sleep schedule or dietary preferences or career anxieties. For the first time in over a decade, I belonged only to myself. I saw her once. It was unintentional. I had gone to a bookstore near Michael's old firm, and there she was, Kristen. Tall, confident, holding a tablet and talking to someone in a black pencil skirt. I recognized her by the way Michael had described her once, back when she was just a name in a harmless story. The woman who always speaks like she's moderating a TED Talk. She didn't see me. But I saw her. And I didn't hate her. Surprised me. I expected to feel rage or envy, or at least a sick twist of something. But instead I felt detached. She was real, yes. She existed. But she wasn't the villain anymore. Maybe she never truly was. Michael had made his choices. And I had made mine. Writing saved me in quiet ways. What began as journal entries turned into essays. Then essays into stories. Not all of them were about him. Some were about my mother's garden, or the scent of cinnamon on winter mornings. Some were fiction, imaginings of women who fled their lives and became bakers in Portugal, or opened antique shops in Cornwall. But threaded through them all was the same pulse. Resilience. My Tuesday writing group became a second home. I made friends there, real ones. Celeste, a retired nurse who wrote beautiful poetry about grief. Andre, the vampire novelist who ended up being an exceptional cook. And Maya, who introduced me to spoken word and made me believe my voice belonged in rooms where people listened. Eventually, a publisher noticed my work. The book was released in the spring. Small press. Modest success. But to me, it felt like climbing out of a well and realizing the sky was much bigger than I remembered. It was nearly a year to the day when Michael called. I almost didn't answer. The name still flashed on the screen with that old familiarity. I let it ring twice. Then I picked up. "Hi, Anna." His voice was cautious, slower than I remembered. I heard about the book, he said. Congratulations. It's incredible. Thanked him. There was a pause, long enough to let ghosts breathe. I'm not calling to stir anything up, he added quickly. I just wanted to say I'm glad you're doing well. That you found something that feels true. I wanted to say something profound. Something like, I forgave you. Or I'm grateful for the pain. But all I said was, I hope you're doing well too, Michael. And I meant it. I still wear the ring sometimes. Not my wedding ring, the one I bought myself after the divorce. A thin silver band, no diamonds, no promises. Just a symbol of the vow I made to myself. To never shrink again. I've traveled more this past year than I did in my whole marriage. I've eaten pistachio gelato on a rooftop in Rome. I've read poetry on stage in Portland. I've danced, barefoot and laughing, in a thunderstorm in the Catskills. And sometimes I still ache. The ache doesn't mean I want him back. Doesn't even mean I miss him. It's just the echo of love once lived. A trace of something that shaped me. But now, when I wake up in the morning and make my coffee, I smile. Because this quiet apartment, this book-lined desk, this wide-open future, this is mine. And for the first time in a long time, I don't need a man or a contract, or anyone else's permission to feel whole. A letter to the woman I was. Dear Anna, I saw you cry into your hands the night he left. I saw the way you curled in on yourself like grief was a wave crashing through your ribs. I know you thought it would destroy you. But it didn't. It broke you open, yes. But not everything that breaks is the end. Some things break so the light can get in. You will love again. Maybe not soon. Maybe not in the way you once imagined. But you will. First you will love yourself. And that is the most important love of all. Keep going. You're almost there. Yourself in bloom seedling. It happened on a rainy Thursday in October. I was doing a reading at a local bookstore. A cozy place with warm lighting, old floorboards that creaked like whispers, and a cafe that smelled like roasted almonds and nutmeg. I'd been invited to read an excerpt from my book and answer a few questions afterward. The crowd wasn't large, but they listened with such intent that I felt seen in a way I never had, not even during the most intimate years of my marriage. After the event, I signed a few copies, made small talk, and tried to avoid spilling tea on my blouse. That's when I saw him, standing near the poetry section, leaning slightly against the shelf, holding my book in one hand and a leather journal in the other. He wasn't classically handsome. His hair was graying at the temples, and he had the kind of eyes that looked like they'd seen storms but survived everyone. When our eyes met, he offered a half-smile. You write the way people think when they're finally honest with themselves, he said. It was the kindest compliment I'd ever received. His name was Elias, a travel photographer between assignments. He asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. I hesitated. For months I had told myself I wasn't ready. That love would distract me from healing. But I said yes. With Elias things were slow. Beautifully slow. He didn't fill the silence with performance or pressure. He listened when I spoke. He asked questions without expecting easy answers. On our third coffee, I told him I was divorced. He nodded gently and said, I figured. The way you look at your freedom, it's not new but it's sacred. He never asked about Michael directly. But he gave me space to tell pieces of the story as they emerged, like threads being gently pulled from a tangled skein. And when I finally said, I thought I was unlovable after what happened, he reached across the table, brushed a crumb from my sleeve and said, That's the lie grief tells you. But I see you. Clearly. It wasn't a grand declaration. But it melted something in me that had been frozen for too long. Chapter 9. When Michael called again. This time I didn't pick up. The call came just after midnight. I saw his name. I felt a pinch of something, nostalgia maybe. But I let it ring. The next day he sent a short message. I saw you on the local news. They did a piece on your book tour. You look happy. Hope you are. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. But because there was nothing more to say. I was happy. And that happiness didn't include him anymore. One day, I got an invitation from Dana Whitmore, my ex-husband's lawyer. She had read my book, said it moved her, asked if I would be interested in speaking at a conference for women rebuilding after divorce. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to forget everything, to leave the past neatly behind me. But another part of me, older, stronger, knew that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about transforming. Said yes. When I stepped on stage that spring morning, I stood in front of 300 women, many still raw, still reeling. I told them everything. The breakfast table, the lawyer's office, the nights of silence, the rebuilding. I ended with this. We are not broken because someone stopped loving us. We are broken when we stop loving ourselves. And we heal the moment we decide to come home to who we were before we learned to dim our light to make someone else comfortable. The applause wasn't loud, it was deep. The kind that starts in the chest. The kind that says, "Thank you. I see myself in you." Elias and I never defined ourselves with titles or timelines. But on the first anniversary of our bookstore meeting, he gifted me a photo. It was of me reading aloud, my hands gesturing mid-sentence, eyes full of fire. "I took it that first day," he said. "I didn't know you yet, but I knew that I would never forget that version of you." We sat on the balcony that night, feet tangled under a quilt, the city lights winking like stars. And I thought to myself, this is what love feels like when it doesn't ask you to shrink. When it holds space for all your former selves and still chooses your current one. I still think of Michael sometimes. Not out of longing, but as a mile marker on a long road. He was a chapter, an important one, but not the climax, not the conclusion. I have learned to live in rooms with open doors, not walls. I have learned to love without losing my name. And most importantly, I have learned that a broken heart is not the end. It is the beginning. Author's note from Anna's second book. To the woman reading this. If he left, if she left, if it all came crashing down. You are not the rubble. You are the rebuild. This is not the story of the marriage that ended. This is the story of the woman who began.